Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's hearing. I'm very glad that we're able to be back here at Bishopsbridge Road in order to conduct hearings in the usual way, albeit with limited attendance. We're looking forward to being able to open the hearings more widely as soon as we can. Quite when that will be will depend on government advice, but we hope within the next month or two we shall be back to full hearings in person. Today we're going to start hearing evidence in Module 3, and I think your first witness, Mr. Millett, is Mr. Chapman, is that right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chapman, who I would like to call.
Yes, thank you. So could you ask Mr. Chapman to come in, please? Good morning, Mr. Chapman. Now you have the affirmation on the screen. Could you read it out, please?
Yeah. I do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much. Do sit down. Make yourself comfortable. All right. Yes, Mr. Millett, when you're ready.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, members of the panel, good morning. Mr. Chapman, good morning. Thank you very much for coming to the inquiry today and helping us with our investigations. We're extremely grateful to you. If you have any difficulty understanding any of my questions or hearing any of my questions, or you'd like me to put the question in a slightly different or clearer way, please just say, and I can do that. We will take a scheduled break at 11:15 or so, depending on how we're going. But if you need a break at any other time, again, please just let us know. If you could keep your voice up as well, please, so that the transcriber who sits to your right can hear what you're saying and get that down. That would be extremely helpful. And also, please, if you don't mind, avoiding shaking your head or nodding, because no or yes doesn't come out on the transcript.
Okay.
Right, thank you. Now, you've given two witness statements to the inquiry, and they will appear on the screen in front of you as we go to them. Can I just show you those so that they're in the record? The Phase 1 statement that you gave us is at IWS 40130s, IWS 40130s, and it's dated the 18th of May 2018. Is that your first statement to the inquiry?
Yes.
And there's a second statement as well, which is IWS 401619, dated the 11th of February 2020, at IWS, and there it is. Is that your second statement?
Yes, that's my statement.
Now, your first statement covered all your evidence on the subject of fire safety advice and signage and the smoke control system as well, didn't it?
Yeah.
I just want to deal with the formalities now with this statement on your screen, your second statement. Can you please go to page 10? And there you see at the foot of the page a signature next to the date 11th of February 2020. Can you confirm that that is your signature?
Yes, that's my signature.
Have you read this witness statement recently?
Yes.
And can you confirm that its contents are true?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, I just want to ask you a few questions about your background to your living in the tower. You cover these at paragraphs 7 to 9 of this statement on page 2. If we could just have that up, please. And just to summarise that, it's right, isn't it, that as at the 17th of June 2014, your home was flat 195 on floor 22 of Grenfell Tower?
Correct.
And you yourself moved into that flat 14?
Correct.
And I don't think you'd lived in Grenfell Tower before that date, is that right?
No.
Is that right?
No.
No. And Naomi Lee, who I think was and is your partner, was the formal leaseholder of that flat?
Correct, yes.
And you lived with her?
Yes.
Yes. Now, in your Phase 2 statement, you refer both to RBKC and to the TMO. Before the 14th of June 2017, what did you understand to be the respective roles of those two bodies in relation to Grenfell Tower?
So I understand that the RBKC is essentially the landlord of the building. They own the building, and the TMO is responsible for maintaining and doing the necessary maintenance of the building. and they essentially, in my mind, are as one responsible for looking after the building, if you like, between the landlord and the management company.
What was your understanding at that time of the relationship between RBKC on the one hand and the TMO on the other?
I thought that they would be closely linked and communicate with each other.
Did you know that the TMO was managed by a board which included resident tenants and leaseholders among its membership?
No.
Did you know that as a resident you could join the TMO board and become involved in its work without, and also to be elected to the board?
No.
You didn't know that?
No.
Did nobody ever tell you that that was something that you were eligible?
No, I don't remember being told that.
Right. Now, can we look at paragraph 8 of your statement? It's on the screen in front of you. And you explained there that in early 2017 you became involved in the Grenfell Tower Leaseholders Association, or GTLA. And you say that that followed from your meeting Shahid Ahmed in the lift in the building. Before that encounter, had you heard of GTLA?
Yes, I had seen it on emails that my wife had received from the Grenfell Tower Leaseholder Association, so I knew of it but didn't necessarily know what it was.
Right. So Naomi Lee was on the email circulation list, was she, for GTLA?
Correct, yeah.
How did she come to be on that email circulation list?
I don't know.
Did you ever discuss it with her?
No.
Right. Now, at all events, we know that you did join the GTLA in early 2017, didn't you?
Yes.
And then I think you became secretary in about March 2017.
Yes.
What made you want to become secretary?
I think the fact that I had raised issues or I made complaints, and I felt that if I was involved in a group of people collectively, maybe that might give it some traction rather than just one person complaining.
Right. And did anybody invite you to become secretary, or was this something you volunteered to do?
I'm not entirely sure. I think Shah and I had conversations about my involvement in it, but I'm not entirely sure of how that kind of evolved.
Right. Looking at paragraph 8 in this statement, you say halfway down, I had been complaining about certain issues on an individual basis and felt that joining them would be a more effective way of escalating complaints because there would be a high number of people complaining together about the same issues. What led you to think at the time that there would be a high number of people complaining together about the same issues?
I think if more than one person has an issue, then as a collective body, maybe if the council or TMO, if I refer to the council or TMO, I do apologise if I get confused between them, that obviously if one person writes, it's just one person, but if you're a group of however many people, then your complaint has got kind of more foundation upon which you can fall in terms of the way it's recognised. Then the council, rather than think, oh, it's one person, they can think, okay, that group of people have that view.
Right. And you say that group of people have that view. What issues particularly did you think had been the subject of common complaint at that time?
At that time, I think the lifts was an issue. The antisocial behaviour was an issue, and I think the gas pipe or the works taking place within the building.
Right. And what specifically about the lifts was the subject of common complaint at that time?
I think constant breakdowns was the main issue with them, from my point of view.
Right. Were you aware at that time, so first quarter of 2017, of the existence of the Lancaster West Residents Association, or LWRA?
No.
Did you become aware of the existence of that organisation?
Only after the fire.
Only after the fire. Did you yourself have any involvement with the Grenfell Compact?
No.
Now, I want to look at paragraphs 32 through to 40. I'm not going to read them all to you. On page 5 of this statement. If we could turn to that, please. if we can go to paragraph 32, which I think is the next page, I'm sorry. You describe there a report to the London Fire Brigade about a fire at Grenfell Tower that resulted in the injury of 3 people caused by poor maintenance, for which TMO RBKC were responsible. And you say that Shah had shown me a report, and you'd seen the reference to 3 people being injured, and you only ever saw a hard copy of that report. Was that before or after you became secretary of the GTLA?
I can't remember if it was before or after I became secretary.
Right. Can I ask you to look at your first statement, please? IWS 40130, page 5. This is your phase 1 statement, which is already in the record. And you explain here in some detail over a number of short paragraphs the fire safety advice that you were given at the tower. And in summary, you say that before the refurbishment, your knowledge of the stay put policy had come from Naomi, who'd been told about it, as you described them, the fire safety people. That's paragraph 33, you see.
Yep.
And later you say the knowledge had come from posters which had appeared in the communal areas in the building a few weeks before the fire. But I want to ask you about some of the other sources of fire safety advice. Can I start by asking you about Link magazine? Can we go to TMO 20873-549? Now, this is an issue of Link magazine, which is a publication by the TMO, and this is the autumn and winter 2015 issue 60, which is described as a bumper issue, and it wishes you Merry Christmas to all our readers. Do you remember receiving copies of Link magazine?
No.
Did you never saw it lying around anywhere, did you?
Well, I can't remember specifically receiving a Link magazine. I remember seeing, newsletters from the council or the TMO, which so I've probably seen bits and things, but I can't say that I recognise the name Link magazine.
Right. You see, one of the reasons I'm asking you about this magazine is it's one of the means by which the TMO communicated, or say they communicated, fire safety advice. So I'm asking you whether you, as a resident of the tower, ever saw it.
If they'd have been delivered, it would have been something that I would have read.
Right.
Roughly as breakfast time reading or something.
Okay. And there'd be a lot to read. Did you never saw this come through the letterbox?
No, not specifically. No.
Did you ever see it in the building?
No.
Had you ever heard of it?
I feel like today's the first time I've properly heard of it.
Right. Right. Well, let's look at another document, the homeowners newsletter, TMO 00873-542.